Perfect. Thank you very much for joining in today. And today we have got Sneha Pillai joining in from beautiful Kerala. She has been a Commonwealth scholar and completed her graduation master's in London School of Economics. So welcome, Sneha, and thanks for giving your time for this generous talk.
You're welcome. Pleasure, actually.
Great. So Sneha, I wanted to just dive into first question is you you studied in Mumbai, and then why did you decided that you have to go to London for education? What was the reason that you went outside the country to study?
Right. So to be very honest, it was not an easy decision to arrive at, and I'm pretty sure that anyone who studied abroad would recognize with that feeling, and especially because I was also a few years into my career. I was on a career path where I saw myself being for a long term. So it was not an easy decision to think about taking a break from that and going back into academics, but because so also to just give a bit of a background into my academics, I did my undergrad in journalism,
Uh-huh.
but I had switched on to the development sector, and I had been working in the development sector for 2 years when I decided to go for a master's. And one of the things that I realized was that in development sector, a global perspective can be it can be really critical, and also an academic grounding and development itself can be really critical because it helps you think about certain things a little more analytically, and you can your learning itself gets a lot more informed when you're working in the space. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to go to a university where I can not just learn from the best professors, but where also my peers themselves would have like a set of global experiences where I'd be able to learn from their own cultural, nuances that they bring. And also, I wanted to be in a university where, or be in a course where the course itself attracts students who have at least a few years of, um, career work experience, so that they can sort of bring in that experience as well. And that's when I ended up finding this course in the London School of Economics, which attracts like people from all over the world, really. And in like a class of 40 students, there were people from, I can't really recollect, but people from a lot of different countries. And that just made up for so much more than just a degree. Like the experience itself was so much more than just a degree.
Amazing, amazing. So very important point, which is the common known fact as well. The international exposure is the prime reason many students want to go out, and of course to learn about different culture, learn from peers, universities. And one thing that you highlighted is that the listeners should also look into how to shortlist your university or the course based on your own preference. So say, Sneha's preference was somebody of which is very selective, and I want to learn from peers, not only from the university. So great perspective, Sneha, and I hope some of the students would imply that in their course selection as well. So the second question I wanted to understand is the one of the feather on your hat is your Commonwealth Scholarship. So tell me about it. Like, how did you discover Commonwealth Scholarship? Who introduced it to you, or why did you feel the need of the scholarship in first place?
Right. So to be honest, I can't remember who was the first person who told me about this scholarship, but I did know of a lot of people who had gotten the Chevening Scholarship,
Yeah.
which is also a similar scholarship that is available for students who wish to study in the UK. Um, and in the process, like when I was looking at other scholarships, I think that's when I'd come across the Commonwealth Scholarship. But I also distinctly remember my dad, he read it in the newspaper that the Commonwealth Scholarship was open for applications, and he told me about it. And so for those who may be familiar with the process, the Commonwealth Scholarship is actually a two-step process. One, you have to make an application to the Ministry of Education, and then you have to make an application to the Commonwealth Scholarship Secretariat. And it's actually the Ministry of Education in India which shortlists the candidates who can apply to CSE, the Secretariat in the UK. And so I had a feeling that, like, am I, and I read about how wide the pool of applicants is, and like how only like about 20 to 25 students eventually end up getting the scholarship. And I was like, do I really have that caliber? Am I really someone with credentials enough to make it to the top 25? And I wasn't sure, but I thought it was worth a try anyway, because which brings me to the second question as to why did I decide to apply for a scholarship. For me, it was quite plain and simple that I wanted to come back and work in India, that I didn't intend to work in the UK. And so for me to take on that big an investment, because studying in the UK is definitely not a cheap option. The academic, the tuitions itself are quite expensive, and then staying in a city like London is also like super expensive. So I was, concerned about all of that, and I was wondering, does it make sense to spend so much of money, especially in pounds, when I know that I'll be coming back to India and earning back in rupee? So I was just, making all those calculations, and I was also just only a few years into my career, so I didn't have like big enough savings to put into this education. And that's when I decided that, the scholarship, which is like a full ride, like it pays for your tuition, it pays for even your airplane fees, it pays for your health insurance in the UK. They have like book allowance, they even have a warm clothing allowance. So it was like a fully funded package really. And more than that, I think what attracted was this community that the Commonwealth scholars have. And so yeah, it was, once I discovered the scholarship, the decision to apply for it, I think it's fairly straightforward.
Amazing, amazing. That's a very inspiring story as well. And another scholar that I was speaking to last week, she had a shoveling scholarship, and very similar. Initially, people do doubt themselves. Oh, am I even eligible? And many of our listeners, those who are thinking, they were thinking the same thing exactly. Am I even eligible? 25 people out of how many? 60 people out of how many? But then the surest way of failure is not to try, right? So yeah, so
Absolutely.
definitely you should give it a try. And you mentioned it is two-way process, right? Two-step process. But then when should we start applying? When should we start preparing? What is your tips on that?
I think you should start preparing as soon as you've decided that you want to go abroad, because there's really, I mean, I don't think it's ever too early to start prepping. Because what, like in my experience, like ever since I've received the scholarship, what has also happened is that a lot more students have been reaching out to me
Mm,
and asking for, like, specific questions as to how to go about the scholarship. Because, like, for anyone who's, I think, looking into applying, they can get very overwhelmed in the beginning. And so a lot of students do reach out. And one of the things that I've realized is that people usually reach out very close to the deadline. So, there's like
yes.
so many moving parts to this application. You need to get your admission sorted. You need to have an offer letter in hand. You need to have like your reference letters. And there are like a lot of moving parts to this application. The application itself is, there are several questions, and the word limit can also be quite a challenge to be able to explain all your years of experience, all your academic credentials in, like, briefly, can also be quite challenging for a lot of people. So I
Mm.
would say that as soon as you've decided that you want to go abroad, that's when you should start preparing. That's when you should have an idea of which universities you want to apply to. And as soon as the application window opens, make sure that you're one of the first ones to send your applications in, because universities also take their time to get back. And then you also have to get your IELTS sorted. And you may have to send in your transcripts, etc. And there may be times when the university will not accept a digital copy. So like whichever school you did your education in from in India, they would have to send the transcripts in. All of those are very, time consuming processes. So I would say that just start as soon as you can.
Do you remember like what month of the year normally the application opens, and when do you need to submit it by?
So to be honest, I think the process has changed quite significantly since the time I applied.
Yeah.
Because in the year that I applied, there used to be an interview stage
Hmm.
in the
Hmm.
Commonwealth application process, and now they have taken off that interview.
Hmm.
The Ministry of Education, back then it was called the Ministry of Human Resources Department, they used to conduct an interview. So the interview And I think during my time, they'd interviewed close to 1,000 students, if I'm not wrong. I
Really?
remember seeing the nomination list, and not the nomination list, the list of students who had been selected for the interview, and it was quite a long list. But for me, I think it started sometime in September.
Okay.
Yeah, the application process had started in September, and
Mhm.
I had to make two applications, one to the Ministry of Education and one to the Commonwealth Scholarship Secretariat, like I mentioned. And February was when they called us for an interview. And I think the list of nominations were made in March.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a long process. The list of nominations were made in March, and June is when the Commonwealth Secretariat announced their provincial results. And July is when I received the final letter, the hard copy of the scholarship.
So just connecting the dots, normally like shoveling starts in August approximately. So probably August, September is somewhere the Commonwealth also starts. So keep your eyes open, all of you, those who are listening for on this year. If you're planning for next year, 2022 September, you have to make an application this year. So one important point that I want to make clear for the listener is that even though you do not have an offer letter now, you can make an application. Am I right? Yes.
So I think you can make an application, but for the Ministry of Education to consider it, I
Hmm.
think by January, February is when you should have an offer letter at hand, if I'm not wrong. I think they keep changing the processes every year. They may come up with new set of guidelines, but I think
Hmm.
in the year that went by, I mean, for this year, I think they did require the candidate to have an offer letter. But I would urge everyone to check on the guidelines on the Ministry of Education's page
I
before.
will be posting that link on the description below. So please check the updated version. So what I'm just checking it by end of July is the application. So it's not even September. So I will be posting the right link. So rely on those dates definitely. But
Yes.
then one thing from your experience, what profile element of yours made you a selected student for that particular selection, right? So what are they actually looking for is my question.
Um. So I mean, I don't quite know how to answer that question, but I would say what really, made me confident about my application was the fact that I was very clear as to what I wanted to study. And I
Mm,
think
mm,
even in the scholarship application form, there's a lot of space in there to make sure that, that you basically convey the clarity of thought that you have in terms of not just what you're looking to pursue academically, but also what you want, what your long-term career goals are, and how that is likely to benefit your home country. Because for the Commonwealth Scholarship, I think that's very important. One is, of course, academic credentials. They do look for students who are like who have done academically well, so to say. And secondly, they want to see that you are passionate about whatever subject you've chosen. It cannot be like, you've studied something and suddenly you wish to change your career and you
mm,
have nothing to show for it.
mm.
Even if you are switching subjects, I think what's really important is to show that you have volunteered somewhere, or that you have, taken up personal projects which showcase your interest in that particular topic. And I think all of those experiences definitely sort of like help.
Definitely. So the more clarity that you have on your long-term career plan, the better it is. And I also see that. Do you think a freshers can get through the scholarship, or do you recommend only somebody with a couple of years of experience to prove that what they're doing is in relation to that?
Actually, that's the biggest difference between the Commonwealth Scholarship and the Chevening Scholarship. Like with the Chevening Scholarship, they require students to have, I think, 2 years of work experience. With
Hmm.
Commonwealth, they don't ask for it because they are mostly looking for academic qualifications.
Mm,
But that's, and in my year, like in my cohort, there were, I think, one or two students who were also like who had graduated just the previous year. So in that sense, they were freshers.
mm.
But what really helped, I think, in their case was, like I mentioned, like, volunteering experiences and
Yes,
the pursuit of those personal projects that really showcase, the fact that they are interested, that they are committed, or they're sincere about the subject that they're studying. subject that they be. And I think just make sure that if you are, for example, if you're planning to study development communication like I did, maybe like volunteer or take like internships at organizations which, sort of like show that your interest in this particular subject goes beyond just like, wanting to do a master's. It should basically convey something more than that. It should tie into your long-term career goals.
Sure, sure. Amazing, amazing, Sneha. So, can you throw some lights on any criterias that you would highlight that the students should be aware of? Of course, most of the recent criteria would be on the website, but anything, any tips that you can give that how to make sure or your profile most probable of selection?
Right. I would say that, just I think for me, like the most important thing is thing I would be clarity of thought, like, right, with whatever course that you've selected, also to make sure that you convey to the person, the other person who's reading your application, that you have thought this through, that you
Mhm.
have like a very good idea of why you want to do this course and how it fits into your career, long-term career goals. So for example, to share that, to share like a personal anecdote of sorts, in my application form, what I was very keen on, including, was the fact that I knew what I wanted to study, and I had a very clear idea of why I wanted this particular university and why this particular course. So to show that, I mentioned, like, in my application, I also mentioned a few professors who I was keen on learning from, whose work had inspired me, and then mentioning some of the course modules which I was interested in. And I also had mentioned in a few lines the dissertation topic that I wanted to look at. Because I think in
Amazing.
making sure that I was talking about a lot of those things, it showed that, I had thought this through, that I was, because at the end of the day, they receive like thousands and thousands of applications. So you have to make sure that whatever, there's something that you do that, goes beyond what everyone else is talking about. And I'm not sure if that helped in my case, but it's something that, I had in mind, and that I, like, one of the things I was really banking on in my application as well was making sure that, um, I make it very clear as to why I want to do this course and how it ties into my long-term career goals.
Amazing, amazing. That's an amazing tip. So clarity of thoughts is the most important thing, not only for education, for anything that you do in your life, right?
Absolutely.
So just having a clear focus. But having said that, right, it is easier said than done, right? So kids being kids at an early stage of your life, you do not know what you want to actually do.
Absolutely.
And then that's where the need of a mentor comes in, where the mentor can help you understand yourself better and ask you right questions. So any listeners, if you are up for a mentorship, if you are looking for an advisor, Zoom Abroad can connect you with the right set of advisors and mentors to help you make a right decision to achieve that clarity of thoughts. And I would like to thank once again, Sneha, for your gracious time that you have shared with us and the knowledge. And I'm sure a lot of students would benefit from this. And thank you very much once again.
You're welcome. It was lovely talking to you, and I really hope that it helps the students as well.
Great. So, guys, those who are listening, please do share this video to the people that may get help in your friends, in your family, or apply those tips in your application. So, best of luck and hope you get these scholarships and the admissions.